How is this possible? You are banished from death.
We will be together, my love. Soon. Forever.
We will be together again soon, my love.
We're here talking Shadow of Mordor with Bob. Bob, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Let's talk big scale to begin with, okay? As we find out in the presentation, this carries on after the Battle of the Five Armies, the last Hobbit film coming out at the end of the year. To begin with, I mean, have you guys sort of kept eyes on that? I mean, the two companies discussing about where that sort of thematic and story tires are finishing in that film and it carries on to this?
Yeah, well, we've definitely kept up with exactly what they're doing in the films, make sure we're not generating any kind of details that would ever overlap, and taking advantage of as much as we can of the kind of the world they're creating to kind of inspire us as we build out Mordor. You know, Mordor is a famous place, but not one that we've explored in a lot of great detail. You kind of just skirt the edges of it in the films, right? And so we're really diving in and fleshing that out and fleshing out the orc culture and all that stuff. And we did actually work with Weta on orc concepts and orc culture ideas and everything as well. So obviously they have a great sense since they're doing a lot of that for the films.
And we see a bit of background. We see flashbacks to Sauron. We see flashbacks to the forging of the Rings of Power. Again, that's sort of newish content for game players. Perhaps people that are invested in the actual saga will know a little bit more about. But how did it feel for you guys to sort of effectively produce this for the first time and show this to the world?
It's really exciting. I mean, we're such huge fans of the lore. To have a character like Celebrimbor, this really important character in the history of Middle-earth that we're able to kind of tell a new story with, and really like showing the forging of the Rings of Power is something that you haven't seen in the films. You haven't seen really a lot of detail about in the books. If people read The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, they're this underlying force in the world, but really getting to start to flesh out those characters in that history. And Celebrimbor is so interesting because he's such a powerful figure, but at the same time, it's not black and white. He's not just a good guy. He's not a bad guy. He's a proud, blacksmith. He's the best blacksmith that ever lived, but he's proud of his work and hence created the Rings of Power that have this darkness to them, even though they're also used for good. The Elven rings. He gives one to Galadriel. There's two sides to this. It's not a black and white story, and that's the thing we're really excited about exploring and spending more time on thematically.
I was going to say, yeah, because the interaction between him and Talon, it seems key to the character development, certainly for both of them over the course of the game. I mean, how have you looked at that arc? I mean, this guy is thousands of years old, talking to basically a resurrected ranger. How's the interplay between the two of them?
Yeah, it's been really fun and interesting. It's a core theme of Tolkien, right? Deathlessness and death, the search for deathlessness, the fact that men are the ones that can die, elves can't. They don't really understand that about each other. But in terms of Celebrimbor's view, like from that elven perspective of thousands of years and immortality, I mean, men are they're here for a blip, and so he has a much more laconic and kind of philosophical approach to the world a lot of times, and Talion's a little bit more in the moment, right? The other interesting thing is exploring the fact that it's about power, right? I mean, it's Lord of the Rings. Power is a sinister word, right? But it's a game, and power is a fun word, right? So it's fun to explore that overlap between Tolkien themes and gamers, excitement to grow in power and get really dominant, and trying to speak to that in a way that's actually authentic and not just feel like you're running amok and running counter to the lore. We really embrace that as a important thematic element of these guys' experience of growing in power, and have it be true to what Tolkien's speaking to.
Except that was an in-depth thing on power anyway, but the other flip side again of that is actually Gollum, who almost feels like a third player in this whole story. Again, with that, I mean, is Andy Serkis lending his talents to this?
No, actually, Gollum is played by Liam O'Brien, who just did a killer job, and as evidenced by the fact that a lot of people are asking if it's Andy Serkis. He just did a great job. We do actually have one of the animators that worked on Gollum in the original films. So it's really pretty authentic to that look and feel. Yeah.
Let's talk the Nemesis system, because I think this is incredibly interesting, but it's a new sort of concept, and it's a bit hard to get the head around. Certainly, even watching the presentation there, it's like, this sounds phenomenal. How does this work? So if we just go almost like a step by step. So the idea is, as you're exploring Mordor, you're attacking orcs, and those orcs are gaining experience.
Right. So the Nemesis system is at the foundation level. Every grunt, every random cannon fodder, run-of-the-mill enemy that you run into. In most games, they're created, they're killed, they're faceless. They're just kind of there to fill the space. The heart and soul of the Nemesis system is really that every one of those guys matters, has persistence, can mean something. If he kills you, that's a major event in his life. He just leveled up, right? Like you learn his name, you learn about his personality. You know, he's going to taunt you. You're going to figure out who he is. You can discover his strengths and weaknesses and come back after him. And the way you can do that is that in our game, time moves forward. It's not like other games where you reload a checkpoint a minute ago, you relive the last few moments of the game over again. Everything's moving forward. It's consistently just advancing. And so these guys, you resurrect, you come back to life. These guys just made a name for themselves. They get promoted. They're now a guy that you can actually have more interactions with, who can remember you, who can build a history and a relationship with you. And it also evolves how they play. That depending on how you fought them, how they fought you, if you caught them on fire, for example, the next time you see them, if they're a particularly weak guy, maybe he has a fear of fire now that you can exploit. If he's a really tough guy, maybe he now has a hatred that'll enrage him, and he'll just get even stronger.
So does that mean then you'll encounter, say, a particular orc at a particular point, they kill you, you come back. These XP upgraded orcs then, do they stay in the same area, the same region? So if I come past that region again, I will spot those orcs that I tackled before?
Yeah, there's a variety of the ways this can play out. I mean, sometimes they do have kind of home bases where they typically do their day-to-day orc business. You know, they have roles in society. They're slavers and they're cooks and they're doing their orc thing. So sometimes they'll have a home base that you'll come back and you can find them in if you just look around for them. Sometimes they go off on their own missions, though, because they're basically running a parallel path to you. They do their own missions. They try and level up. They try and make a name for themselves outside of their interactions with you as well. So if you look out for these guys, sometimes they might be off hunting crazy wild beasts. And if they succeed at that, they'll grow even more. Or you can go kind of try and ambush it and mess it up and take it as an opportunity to catch them off guard. Sometimes they're executing weaker orcs, and they're dueling each other. It's a brutal society, so they fight a lot too.
I saw that at the Nemesis system screen. There was duels between different orcs to be promoted to war chief. Again, is that something that will happen in the world even if you're not there to observe it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a living, breathing ecosystem of it's a society. It's an orc social network and structure, and they will fight and claw and scratch their way to the top even without your influence. And then of course you can get involved and manipulate it in all kinds of fun ways.
So then you have a set number of war chiefs, and each war chief will have a particular objective to try and call them out.
Right, and based on their personality and their role in society, what you have to do to get his attention to draw him out will change. So like an example, the guy might be the grog master. He's in charge of all the booze. Maybe you have to go detonate all his booze and blow it all up, and that'll get him pissed and he'll come out and fight you. That's one example. And they also have bodyguards too that will show up with them. So you can, if you're not strategic about it and you don't go after those guys first, you can end up with this like triple, quadruple boss fight, multiple bosses all at the same time. It can be pretty overwhelming at times.
I mean, this is all still built within the sort of the openness of Mordor. So is the intention just trying to understand the game's structure here then? You'll have the openness of Mordor, and within it you'll have mission objectives, but between those you just free roam and encounter what you need?
Right, it's an open world sandbox game, so there's a lot of freedom, a lot of room to explore, and a lot of different activities. There's lots of different mission types. There's the core kind of story missions. It's structured very much like Red Dead Redemption, where you got sort of core story characters that drive a series of missions, but they're all kind of non-linear, so you can do multiple branches whenever you kind of feel like it. And then, of course, there's side quests, side activities, there's collectibles and all that other stuff to roam around and explore and do. And then the Nemesis system is just constantly generating dynamic missions and enemies to go try and hunt down and kill, because you get big rewards and upgrades from killing them too.
Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to talk.
Yeah, thanks a lot.